Hello, Wynne.
Hello, Vicki. It's so fun to talk to you. You know what? I, I find it a huge privilege to get to talk to you most every week. Sometimes a couple times a week, and whether we record it as a podcast or not, it's just fun to talk to you.
Agree, right? And I don't know about the privilege part. Now I'm starting to sweat a little. I'm gonna have performance anxiety. I don't know.
Well, isn't it like 90 degrees in Chicago? I mean,
It's better.
perhaps. Oh, good.
It's better. Yeah. Yeah, but it's right back at you. Love chatting with you and I think what we're going to talk about today is just so timely that sometimes we
Mhm.
just have to stop time and go, "Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, we need to chat."
Hmm.
And we'll record it and share it with our friends.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good thing we don't record everything to share with friends. That's a good thing.
Yeah. A
Nothing
lot of
malicious, just
no,
goofy.
goofy, a lot of conversations with my kids.
Which
Yeah.
I love. Yeah. I love. They're so cute.
Yes, they love those conversations too.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this week, we've got a specific topic on our mind.
Mhm.
And did you want to kick us off and talk about kind of the inspiration behind this week, or do you want me to take it away?
Go take it away.
Okay. Well, I think you and I were talking the other day about this time last year. We actually did a podcast recording. I think this is like number 83 for us. Is that what it is?
83, that's right.
Yeah, but we had a chat about kind of seasonal changes. There just
Mhm.
seems to be so much that happens as we approach the month of September, and it's the seasonal stuff and shifts in people's schedules. But I don't know, what it is specifically about September that always feels like it has the potential for a reset,
Mhm.
but it does. But I was wondering, when you think about that, the change of seasons,
Mhm.
new routines, coming out of, we all love summer, but there's
Mhm.
an intensity to it. But
Mhm.
when we think about that, for me, it's kind of an equation and those like the pluses and minuses, the gains and the losses. But, I'm always curious about my friends that have full lives with children,
Mhm.
and a full-time job. How does that begin to shift for you this time of year?
Yeah.
What do you see?
Well, I love that you talk about, people that have, kids, but I think it's more than that in that it's people that have kids, that we know of that are
Mm-hmm.
good listeners, like Ab, but there's also people that
Yeah.
are teachers,
Mm-hmm.
Clay and Belle, or people
Yep.
with older kids like Brian and Dave, and the older kids that are
Mm-hmm.
going back to college. So
Yeah.
it's for me, whether it's kids or older kids or teaching, or not particularly kid related. It's just that's that change between flexible and structured.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had this idea that we have more flexibility in summer, and I think that that's true. Maybe more options, um,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're going to get back to some structure, and that's for me. I'm pretty good at flexibility, at least for a certain amount of number of
Mm-hmm.
weeks. But the structure is comforting. The
Yeah.
hope of structure, the
Yeah.
feeling of structure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And you and I were joking before we started recording that that lack of structure, but wanting to be flexible, sometimes I think for a lot of us creates that moment of pause where we're not sure what day it is sometimes
Hmm.
because there isn't like a regular routine, and that can
Right.
be really comforting, but it can also be kind of suffocating and
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
not enjoyable.
Right.
But yeah, things start to shift.
Yeah, I think that they
Yeah.
do shift, but I think with that shift comes a little bit of grief. Like, did I do everything that I was supposed to do this summer? Or,
Yeah.
another one of our blogging friends, Gary Fultz, had a blog where he talked about missing summer because he and
Mm-hmm.
his wife were caretakers for their daughter who is physically disabled, and
Mm-hmm.
she spent most of the summer in the hospital. So they had
Mm,
to they were, gone
yeah.
from and they weren't doing their regular adventures. And what does that
Mm-hmm.
mean if you miss the summer? And
Yeah.
he was incredibly um, grateful in his post
Mm-hmm.
about the relationships that sustain them through all seasons. Um,
Yeah.
but I think for all of us, there's that experience of grief as we say goodbye to summer.
Absolutely. I read something, not sure where I pulled this from, but and I'm sure, our listeners and viewers have picked this up too, but something that said, if we're lucky in life, we have 80 summers.
Hmm.
So whatever it is that you're getting in a twist about,
Hmm.
let it go.
Right.
And so it speaks to that wanting to live in the moment and enjoy, what
Yes.
you can, even when life is difficult and stressful and unpredictable.
Hmm.
But I love that. And in my former colleague group from higher ed, in the month of July, we lost two dear
Hmm.
colleagues in their early 70s, randomly.
Hmm.
So I think that the loss going into autumn,
Hmm.
and summer, everyone wants to kind of squeeze every little bit out because there's
Right.
so many, as we get older, there's so many fun reminiscence points related
Hmm.
to summer and childhood
Hmm.
that you want to squeeze it all,
Yeah.
and then it's gone. And
Yes.
but it's not all bad, because you and I were talking about the things that we love,
Hmm.
oddly enough, when there's less light, because there
Right.
is that pulling in. And
Yeah.
you and I were talking about the productivity piece that comes from that.
Right. And you were saying that you feel more productive in September. Is that right?
I do. Yeah. And I don't know if it's, my years in higher ed, but that idea of, literally being responsible, in most of my roles in transitioning new students and making them feel comfortable, making sure that services were in the right places,
Mm-hmm.
that there is that moment in September when you can catch your breath and
Hmm.
go, oh, and so we begin again.
Right.
And there's that new opportunity. And it's, as adults, we don't have the benefit of, sharp crayons and new pencils and all of that. But I know plenty of adults that take this opportunity as we approach September to go and get early a new calendar,
Mm-hmm.
for the next year, and, kind of tweak some of their self-care habits,
Hmm.
sometimes more so than January. It's
Right.
if there are children involved, or if you're doing elder care and you need to kind of reset routines, it's a way that you can the opportunity to kind of go back and adopt those
Hmm.
things that maybe fell by the wayside, whether it's, eating and nutritional habits or making time to be active.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's just the opportunity to maybe sleep more.
Mhm, I think that that's true. I mean,
Gosh,
where I am, there are 16 hours of daylight in summer, and it's a little
gosh.
and I think about this sometimes metaphorically when I'm a little bit too sunny myself.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it can be too sunny,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
miss in the
Yeah.
summer. I miss even though I get up at 5:30 in the morning, the sun is already up in the
Yeah.
summer, and I miss seeing the sunrises.
Yeah.
But I also feel like I need to be out and going, so
Yes.
I don't do as much writing
Mm-hmm.
and reflecting, and
Yeah.
yeah. Are
Yeah.
there particular wellness or productivity or self-care things that you turn to in the fall?
I wrote this week about being gifted, with a basket from
Mhm,
a former client who became a friend. And it was, an object that she remembered her mother-in-law using all the time. And it was a basket that she used to organize little snippets of things.
mhm,
And I realized when I was writing that piece, it's this time of year when I really want to clean up my desk, think about my workspace. Um, and I don't know if this is just a challenge that creative types and writers have, but I also do a little bit of that gentle confrontational stuff about projects that I wish I would get to, but I
mhm,
haven't.
mhm.
And does this happen to you where you get taunted by things that sit and they look at you? I'm looking at a couple of them like, but you've forgotten about us, and
Yeah.
so I think it's a good time to kind of clean up and either put some things away. So I think
Mhm.
that organization and the visual disturbances, I'm
Mhm.
very plagued by that if I don't tidy up.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
that's the number one thing that comes to mind this time of year.
And that's such a good thing. We taking care of our spaces. And maybe we're outdoors a little bit more. We sort of expanded in the summer. And then
Yeah.
as we come back in to do that organizing and yeah, makes
Yeah.
a lot
Now,
of sense.
be clear, I'd love to get my hands on husband Paul's office, because I think he could use a little help there too. But everyone has a different way of kind of operating, right?
Yeah.
And what works for me
Right.
works for me. But
Right.
yeah, I think that's the first thing that
Yeah.
comes to mind. But I also liked what you said about kind of the sunny days and the less light, because we
Mhm.
had a bad storm here night before last, and then we had a bit of a cloudy day yesterday, and I kind of dug it. It was
Mhm.
good.
Mhm.
Right? I didn't feel like I needed to be out and about as much. It kind of gave me a reason to feel like I could nest a little.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think actually I kind of snuck in a little baby nap. I did.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's okay. That's
I
news.
did.
And
Yeah.
we were talking about the news. There's a lot of things in the news that come to our attention, and you're really good at gathering them. Which, speaking of things for your basket,
Yeah. Well, the one that popped in mind that you and I were chatting about yesterday, and I think some of this fits into a category of just transitions for people. Some of it,
hmm
as you said, is about parents and getting back into regular work schedules, but it's also about teachers that are,
hmm
having to say goodbye, to maybe a little more liberty in the summer, but also people that are facing elder care challenges, looking at the prospect in some places of winter approaching and all of that. It just,
hmm
people have to begin resetting. And so I think there's a reason why my news feed is kind of bringing me some of these things, whether it's, I don't want to know what the big algorithm knows about me.
right.
No, I don't want to know. But there was a beautiful piece this week from today.com
Mm,
that talked about the frustrations, and this was specific, I think, to parents, but I think it's applicable to people in general. And it's also why I needed a nap yesterday, that thinking about eating your evening meal a little earlier, if there are children involved, especially, may help families forego that dreaded period after school that I know
mhm,
from parents, clients who are parents, that this is a huge challenge. The kids come home, whether they're on their own or there's, a parent or a caregiver there, but they basically have the equivalent of a meal and then
mhm,
another meal.
mhm,
And so this like brilliant nutritionist writing for the Today Show, Sarah Williams, was saying, it just flip that around a little bit. Maybe it's okay to have spaghetti and meatballs at 4:30,
mhm, mhm.
and then an
Right.
apple and some cheese, before bed. But, as I was thinking about that, I was thinking about having a really big meal when Paul and I were out with friends 2 nights ago. And it was too late for me
Mm,
to be eating that much, and I didn't sleep well. So
mm,
I know my body, and I know
right.
other people just in the aging process who do better if there's an expression for it, eat like a prince in the morning and a pauper in the evening, something
Right.
like that,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we
Yeah.
going back to the light, we get some visual clues. If it starts to get darker earlier, we start to
Yeah.
remember to eat. It doesn't feel so foreign to be
Yeah.
eating at 4:30 in the afternoon.
Right. But I don't know how that works practically, for parents of small
Mhm.
children. Is that something that would actually be doable for you to
You
do that?
know,
Is that an issue for you guys?
well, it's this is going to be my first year where both my kids are on the same schedule because they're going to the same school.
Right.
And yeah,
Oh,
they
right.
are done early. They're done at 2:30 in the afternoon. So
Mm-hmm.
it does make sense to move that up a little bit.
Yeah.
We really right now we need to move everything up a little bit to get a little more
Yeah.
sleep and
Yeah. So there was that. And then I got so excited yesterday when in my inbox, two things dropped that were related. And so the Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy,
mhm, mhm,
in my 30 plus year career, as a licensed counselor and educator, a dean, I have never seen the Surgeon General come out with a bulletin
Mhm.
about parents under stress.
Hmm.
Never.
Mhm.
And so I told you I was so excited about this, and he wrote a beautiful piece, um, that I think was pushed out also by the National Alliance for Mental Illness
Mhm.
in support of families and some resources that they make available this time of year. But I was going to read you a little snippet of it that from Dr. Murthy that I just thought was just so beautiful. And
Great.
I think it's probably been picked up everywhere at this
Yeah.
point because it's just super powerful. But he wrote, when I became a parent, a friend told me I was signing up for a lifetime of joy and worry.
Mhm.
Like, oh my gosh, that's so relatable. And he talks about the moments of feeling lost and exhausted, but then trying to see that, from the perspective of parents generally and the
Yeah.
stress that's felt and its loneliness, thinking about workplace
Mm.
well-being, the worries, persistent worries about social media for
Mhm.
children, young teens, but that the culminating impact of all of that, thinking about the physical, mental, social well-being of kids, but then also all the juggling that parents are doing, that
Yeah.
basically he was saying it's an unprecedented source of stress for
Mhm.
parents that really generationally no one has ever seen before. So lifting that up to highlight it, just
Yeah.
to acknowledge that the stress is real, I think does such a huge
Mhm.
service to families that, on a daily basis are feeling like they're at a tipping point.
Right. I
Yeah.
yeah, that is remarkable. I think the other in addition to being seen, it sort of, talks about, you know, that stress, and when we do that, we can see how to alleviate it and bring out the
Mm-hmm.
joy of it, of
Yeah.
what we're doing, and I would like to
Yeah.
extend that from not only parenting, but to caregiving. I mean, you talk about a lot about elder care,
Yeah.
um, and that takes a lot of energy and, um, it's the same worries in so many
Mm-hmm.
cases.
Mm-hmm.
Is my, you know, elder that I'm caring for getting
Yeah.
enough attention? Are they, how do I squeeze in
Yeah.
getting medications, or
Mm-hmm.
how do I make the insurance work, or all those other
Right.
things that go along with that caregiving in general?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the presentations that I've done in the last couple of months at libraries talking about that aspect of
Mm.
surviving Sue, I've shared with you that it was that whole elder care thread was a surprise to me,
Mhm.
but I was also unprepared for the people, the readers that have come forward to say, I I don't know how I'm going to manage it because I've got my family,
Mhm.
and there isn't a lot of depth. I don't have a lot
Right.
of siblings. I don't have a lot of support. And we've got, parents that we're thinking about too. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's times two, all of that.
Yeah.
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 It is.
Dr. Murthy, I wanted to read you this one statistic because he
Mhm.
mentioned something from the American Psychological Association.
Mhm.
I just think is a stunning stat. He wrote a recent study from the APA revealed that 48% of parents say that most days their stress is completely overwhelming,
Mhm.
compared to 28% of other adults who reported the same. And
Mhm.
it's the lack of sleep, the compounding
Mhm.
stressors, the elder care, thinking about finances and
Mhm.
safety and all of that. So I love his call to action. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, it's the right time, to
Yeah.
highlight that. Yeah.
And his call to action specifically, what is he recommending?
I think highlighting the fact that it is a problem is the
Mhm.
number one thing, but I think he's also thinking in a like sociocultural point of view about making
Mhm.
parenting sustainable.
Mhm.
That, what are we looking at if the job of being a parent is so overwhelming and so stressful? What does
Mm.
that mean for future generations
Mhm.
about choices that they might make?
Right.
And so I think he also is, there's a political element to it, no doubt, but I think the need for, more affordable childcare is a
Mhm.
huge thing, both before and after. And I think supporting the things that support families and children, libraries, safe
Right.
playgrounds, after
Mhm.
school programs,
Mhm.
preschool programs, making sure kids are fed.
Right. Right.
Oy, boy, boy, boy.
Oi.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's a lot. It's a
it's
lot.
a lot. It's a lot, but I think it all seems to rise unexpectedly somehow every year at the end of August. It
Mhm.
happens every time, right? We
Yeah.
know that this is a shift that's coming, but I think it takes a lot of energy to kind of rise. And I would say the thing that I see with people that I help, it's a time to also not deny your stress
Mhm.
and take the nap if you can get it, ask for extra help if you can
Right.
swing it, but don't try to be a hero.
Yeah.
And then put yourself at risk in the process, which is usually the first thing that
Mhm.
people
Mhm.
scoot to the sidelines.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and maybe eat dinner early, but to your other news article point. And the other thing is maybe as we return to that structure, have that a little bit more flexibility for what your expectations are. I think that always helps me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get as much done that first week when
Mm-hmm.
my kids go back to school. It's just going to be
Right.
how it is. I'm going to be able to
Mm-hmm.
settle in afterwards. And then we can start those projects that we've put off for the summer
Yeah.
that we can
Yep.
dig into, that we can put in our clippings basket
Yeah.
to go.
No, I think your point is so important. And I think it's why, you and I are thinking for the next few weeks, we're going to focus on how do we do that better? Because I
Hmm.
think your point about it's good to be inspired, with
Hmm.
a change and, feel that there are lots of new things that you want to take on. But when there's a lot shifting at one time,
Hmm.
thinking about strategies and pacing yourself.
Right.
So I think we'll be talking about that for a couple of weeks because we think it's a semi-universal need.
Yeah, I think it is. I think we have a lot of people who pivot on a regular basis, whether
Yeah.
it's from a primary career to to caretaking, whether it's
Mhm.
to writing. Almost all of our audience is doing more than just one thing. And
Yeah.
so as much as we can support people.
Yeah, and how to manage it all,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm so grateful to have time with you to just talk about, oh my gosh, the need to nest,
The need to nest.
getting through.
Hmm.
Yep.
I think the need to nest is a great title. Last last year's episode we called September Savor.
Yeah.
Try to savor the goodness of this transition. And
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for all the notes that you bring forward to help us do that.
Well, always fun to talk to you. Thank
Likewise.
you.
Bye.
Bye.